Tony Barnhart, welcome back to T-Town. I hope you're having a great day, sir.
I am having a good day. Thank you, Ryan.
We are 19 days away from Hoover, Alabama. Listen, when you get beat 44-16, you're counting down to anything you can grab to get college football a little bit closer.
I told somebody the other day, Ryan, I said, Tuscaloosa is the one place where you go 14-1, and you spend 99% of your time talking about the one. And, yes, to me, one of the most compelling stories in this conference is Alabama has said all the right things about this being an important season for them and them bouncing back from the national championship game. Do they really do it? I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch.
Tony, if we're sitting down in New Orleans at the college football championship and Alabama's not a part of that, or maybe we could even go to the semifinal games. If Alabama's not a part of it, what is the one question that you may have around this team?
Well, first of all, I'd be surprised because they certainly are scheduled for that kind of opportunity, and they certainly have the talent for that kind of opportunity if a couple of questions get answered. But I think the first question that I would ask is that, did all the turnover in your staff finally catch up with you? Because it really hasn't. Alabama still remains a very well-coached team, but could the cumulative, that would be the question I would ask. But I am, as we sit here today, Ryan, I will be very, very surprised if Alabama is not in the college football playoff.
When you look at Tua Tagovailoa, Tony, where do you want to see him take that next step as an elite quarterback?
To me, it's all about not what he does, but what he doesn't do. What he needs to do less of, because he's talented to do everything. He throws the ball well. He times routes out well. He throws every kind of ball you imagine. What he needs to do less of, in my opinion, and this comes from the head coach, not from me, is to quit extending plays all the time. It's a big part of his game. It's a wonderful part of his game. But when you extend plays, chances are you're going to get hit. He needs to get hit less. And he needs to get rid of the ball earlier and live to fight another down. That will help. There's no question that being dinged up impacted his play down the stretch. I don't think you can argue against that. He needs to learn to take better care of himself.
Yeah, you look at Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, that's going to be one of those decisions. We talk to these quarterbacks and we ask them, and they say it's very hard to do that. That you almost have to mentally be conscious every single, not to take that hit. Step out of bounds. Get the ball out. Don't take that hit. It's not worth it.
Yeah, no, but you know what? The great ones learn how to do it.
Sure.
The great ones learn how to put their competitiveness is what makes them great. But you have to harness your competitiveness when, if you're hobbling in the fourth quarter, you're not giving your team the best chance to win. It's a long game, and there's some very large people who like to hit you that play this game. You've got to be smart. And that to me, that is the main area where Tua has to get better.
Tony, as you look at this Alabama schedule, it sets up quite nice for Alabama. When you look at road trip to Texas A&M, Auburn, LSU coming here, if you're looking at it right now, and I know we're 65 days away, but it's a good conversation piece. Who's the most difficult opponent that Alabama has on their schedule, in your opinion?
Going to Texas A&M on October 12th because of where the game is going to be played, and we're going to be talking about it from day one. And you sit there and look at the Alabama schedule, you go, okay, realistically, where or how could they lose? Well, they play Auburn at Auburn, but by then, who knows what the situation is going to be? Alabama, on both sides of the ball, is better than Auburn, in my opinion. Auburn's defense is great, by the way. But you look at it, the combination of matchup and location going to College Station on October 12th seems to be the most. You got LSU at home. And so when you really look at it, that's going to be the date that I think Alabama fans have circled.
When you look at LSU, what are you expecting from Coach O? This time last year, we're talking about one of the hottest seats in college football. He proved us wrong and got that team to rally around him and got to double digits. When you see LSU, what do you see in 2019?
What I want to see is you've gone out now and you have a lot. First of all, you have a lot of confidence in your quarterback, Joe Burrow. Now what you've done is you've gone out and you've hired Joe Brady away from the New Orleans Saints to infuse some creativity into the passing game. How many times have we heard this? The question is, will you now pull the trigger? Will you now give Joe Burrow enough leeway to make big plays out of the passing game? That's why you brought him in. Do they do it? We are going to learn a lot about LSU on September 7th when they go to Texas. Because Texas is a team that's convinced that they are on the way back or close to being back. And to take this LSU team on the road second week after playing Georgia Southern, we're going to learn a whole lot about LSU.
Let's stay in state here, and let's go to the Auburn Tigers. I know you had a quick comment a couple of minutes ago. Defensively, as you said, one of the best teams there. Offensively, can they get things back on track down on the Plains?
Well, you got to do it with either a true freshman quarterback or a redshirt freshman quarterback. Not a great place to start. You got to do it with an offensive line that, frankly, was not very good. And I'm being kind when I say that. And I'm hearing this from the coaches. They know their offensive line. As a result, they didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher for the first time in 9 years. And we don't know if Booby Whitlow can be that guy. But they've got to be able to run the ball better to take the pressure off the young quarterback. Gus Malzahn's going to call the plays. That's great, but if you ain't blocking anybody, they're not going to win.
Tony, let's spend a couple of minutes here. Late last week, on Friday afternoon, Georgia announced that Jeremiah Holloman is no longer going to be a part of that team.
Mm-hmm.
How big of a loss is that for Kirby Smart?
Well, they were counting on Jeremiah Holloman to be, if not their number one receiver, their number two receiver. The guy only caught 24 balls last year, but he finished really strong at a position where Georgia lost their top three guys. So they were definitely counting on him. But if there's any place where you can take a hit from a talent standpoint and play young players, which they have a lot of good young players coming in because they recruited well, if there's one position on the field you can do that, it's at wide receiver. And so you never want to lose a guy who's proven himself, but I have not changed my opinion about Georgia based on the loss of that one player. Now, if it had been DeAndre Swift or Jake Fromm, now we're having a different conversation.
Let's take you to Florida, and I know we're kind of running around the league and kind of getting your opinions. Dan Mullen in year number 2, what do you expect from the Gators?
I think they're going to be better. I thought Dan Mullen and Mark Stoops got more out of their roster than any two coaches in the league last year. I thought Dan Mullen did a terrific job with his team. There were some, they got hammered pretty good by Kentucky. They got beat hard by Missouri at home. Just got blown away, which was bizarre. Of course, Georgia was a better football team. But to win 10 games, and for Felipe Franks to make the progress that he did, I thought Dan Mullen did a very, very good job. So I think Florida's getting better and better. They're not better than Georgia. I expect Georgia to win that division and to beat Florida again, but they're moving in the right direction.
We're talking to Tony Barnhart. Final couple of questions. Broadcaster for the SEC Network, TMGCollegeSports.com, contributes to 680 The Fan. You can connect with him at Mr. College Football on the Twitter account. Go into the ACC, and this is not a trick question, but we try to propose it to try to understand the ACC. Who's the second best team in the ACC in 2019?
It might be Boston College.
Oh, wow.
After all is said and done. It's not, some people like Virginia. Some people think Virginia Tech's going to bounce back. The conference is not very, very deep. Not very deep at all. It's certainly not Florida State. Florida State's got all kinds of issues. Maybe Willie Taggart gets it turned around in the second year. But there's, maybe a team like NC State. Boy, Dave Doran's done a really good job. It is hard to pick a second team in the ACC because, frankly, Clemson is so much better than everybody else.
And I know these are all hypotheticals, but someone sent me a text message a couple of minutes ago. I was looking through Clemson's schedule, and they said if Auburn had Clemson's schedule, could they go 11-1?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, that just explains the SEC.
Yeah, Clemson's got Texas A&M at home, and that's going to be probably the best team they play all year. So, yeah. What if Auburn had Alabama's schedule?
Sure. Well, no. Yeah, 100%. No, I mean, Alabama has no room. When you got Western Carolina and, Tony, you see this stuff changing? I mean, do you see them? I mean, it's going to change because here's the thing.
And I've spoken to a lot of athletic directors this year about scheduling, and it's changing. You know, you've seen all the new home and homes at Alabama and Georgia and Florida and all those schools. They're doing that for a reason. They've heard from their constituencies. They heard from their season ticket holders who have made it pretty clear with their feet that they're not paying top dollar for these bad games anymore. And so, two things are happening. One, they've heard from their constituency. B, they know down the road, or I believe they believe down the road, when this contract is over, we're going to have an 18 playoff, and they want to be scheduled accordingly when that comes to pass, probably 6 years from now.
Tony, I keep a running list of challenges for ADs in college football, and you tell me if you can add one to this. Concussion safety is probably one of those that everyone's got their attention on. Mm-hmm. Donations are no longer tax deductions. They're trying to get the money, like here in Tuscaloosa, Greg Burns trying to build new facilities, and a lot of those donations are no longer tax deductible. Ticket prices, attendance, high salaries for both head coaches and assistant coaches, the TV contracts because the cord cutting and the different things there that are challenging, transfers, which we saw the NCAA today with the earlier story. You look at the likeness and some, I don't know if you want to say pay for play, but maybe the money in the contracts. Did I miss anything? I mean, there's some big hurdles for these ADs facing.
That's a pretty good list, and I do think the name, images, and likeness thing is going to be the biggest challenge because you got this court case or this situation in California where the legislature may get involved, and what does the NCAA step in and make those guys ineligible, and what happens if more than one state passes? So this is the next big thing. They've already addressed the other stuff, and they're going to continue to address it. But the new thing is the names, images, and likenesses, and this could be, if you're sitting in one of these athletic directors' chair, this could be a nightmare.
I mean, do you feel like the NCAA is just trying to satisfy us with talking about it, or do you think they're really serious considering allowing that to happen?
I think they're sort of slow playing this thing because it's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen because what's going to happen is a piece of legislation, Congress or somebody gets involved, and then the NCAA will have to, and then some guy sells his name, images, and likeness. He's declared ineligible. Then you got the inevitable lawsuit. So it's going to, like anything else, it's going to take a while for us to get there, but it's going to happen.
Well, and we said it yesterday. California is a step ahead. I mean, they now have a recruiting advantage when they're sitting in these living rooms and they're convincing, hey, you come here, you play with one of our schools, right. We can get you extra money because we'll give you a chance to go out and make money off your name.
That's exactly right, and I think they'll throw. They believe that Mark Emmert, the NCAA president, is bluffing, and somebody will eventually call his bluff.
Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. You connect with him on the Twitter account at MRCFB, Mr. College Football. Tony, we'll see you in Hoover. Thank you so much for allowing us to pick your brain here this afternoon.
All right, Ryan. Take care.